Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Down for the Count. I'm your host, Renato Paniagua Jr. I'm very excited to get this podcast ready. It's been in the works for a while. I've been hesitant mainly because I live in the middle of nowhere, so internet connection out where I live is absolutely horrendous. Upload speeds are ridiculously slow, so hopefully this is out as soon as possible. I'm also working on another one with a good friend of mine that should have been out on Monday. I hope it's Monday. I hope it's near Monday when you guys are listening to this. But it's been an absolute nightmare. But anyway, I just want to welcome everyone who's listening to the first episode. Once again, my name is Renato or Nato, whatever's easier, and this is a podcast about boxing, mainly boxing. I would introduce MMA. I'm just simply not as well versed or educated on MMA. I'm still kind of like an infant in the MMA world. I would love to give some commentary on MMA. But as I've learned, scoring is vastly different, sort of, between the two sports. And that's mainly because in the sport of MMA, you have wrestling and you have you have submissions and takedowns and all this other stuff that in boxing you just don't have. Boxing, it's simply punches. So for now, we'll stick to the boxing, and every once in a while I'll chime in about something MMA. But for now, it seems very unlikely, simply because I don't want to make myself out to look like an idiot. But let's get into the topic for today, and this is something that I'm super late, almost a week now. Actually, more than a week, to be honest. It's been a week and a half since the Luke Campbell Vasily Lomachenko fight, a fight that I thought was actually pretty competitive, but that up until maybe like the fifth or sixth round, it was competitive in a way. Campbell obviously won the first round. It's just that he never really imposes length and height on Lomachenko. Not to say that you can. Or can't or cannot. It's just that Lomachenko, he likes to be shifty. He's shifty. He works on the angles. His footwork is impeccable. And just in case, if you didn't watch the fight, good golly, man, the commentators wouldn't they don't let you stop thinking about the fact that Lomachenko's dad, Anatoly, he put him into traditional Ukrainian dance lessons. His footwork is impeccable. Yeah, we get it. Like, seriously, we get it. It's perfectly fine, understandable. The same thing with with when Andy Ruiz, pulled that upset against Anthony Joshua. The commentators would not let you forget. Like, oh, hey, Anthony Joshua. Look at he's fully built. He's the champ, and he's like the number one heavyweight in the world. And Ken Ruiz, who looks like an absolute unit. And looks absolutely huge and fat. Did I mention that he's fat? Like that was the entire commentary for that fight. I just found it hilarious. Try to just put down a boxer who honestly shocked the world in that fight. So hopefully we can get something out of it in the next fight. But we'll talk about that later. But with the Campbell Lomachenko fight, I think with Campbell, and I'm guilty of it too. I didn't think he would give Lomachenko a run for his money. Rather, I thought it was going to be a way more competitive fight than it was. Arguably, you can argue whichever way you want, but the fight did go the distance. And that's just because of the heart of Campbell, I think. But I think the precedent for Campbell being a danger to Lomachenko came from the fact that he beat. I'm sorry, not he didn't beat, but he was in a very, very close split decision fight with another Lomachenko victim, Jorge Linares. And that was a pretty close fight. Linares won the first 6 rounds, and Campbell won the last 6. And unfortunately, it just went against against him, and I think that was because Linares was also probably the bigger draw at that point. But man, he did well for a while. The unfortunate part was that he was fighting while backing away, and doesn't work very well. Moving in a straight line down the middle, Lomachenko's going to pick you apart. And it was just something that I truly didn't. I guess like the fight wasn't exciting, and it was also like a fight where you're like, well, what happens next? Because he beat Campbell, and that's a rhetorical question because obviously we all know what's next. Richard Comey and Teofimo Lopez are set to fight, so that's the only fight I can see in the horizon for Lomachenko. Mikey Garcia is not going to move down. He's made it clear that he's going to stay up in welterweight. Gervonta Davis, he's probably just going to. It's kind of difficult to say because that guy, he puts on 30, like 20 pounds when he's not fighting. He's done fighting, and all of a sudden he hits the nachos and the pretzels and everything, and I want to applaud him because he does have that talent. It's just that he's incredibly, I don't know if it's mismanaged or whatever, but his record, like if you go look at his record, he really hasn't fought anybody. He hasn't fought anybody that was ranked in his in his division. He's always talking smack and saying that he wants to fight Lomachenko, but he never ever really has fought him. If anything, I think the loser of Comey Teofimo should fight Gervonta. And then the winner obviously goes on to fight Lomachenko. I think Teofimo Lopez is still a little too green, though I very, very do much enjoy his hunger. Though I hope that he understands and that he's fighting with the big boys now. Fighting Jesse Magdaleno's brother, Diego, that was, as much as I love the guy, he really, really wasn't going to put up a fight against Teofimo. He is just a powerful dude, man. But going on from that, I really hope Lomachenko, because I'm not sure if Lomachenko stopped, putting the foot on the gas, but I feel like there were many moments in that fight where he could have finished Campbell. I don't know whether it was just because of Campbell's heart or Lomachenko just trying to extend the fight, make it pretty for the fans, but Lomachenko's on the wrong side of 30 now. So time is undefeated, and I seriously think that Lomachenko has some like 2 or 3 good years in him, similarly to Kovalev, where Sergey, another fighter we'll talk about in a little bit, but Sergey Kovalev, he's still a monster in the light heavyweight division. He's just not who he once was. Back when he was fighting Andre Ward, that's when he was absolutely terrifying to fight against. Another topic of discussion is Manny Pacquiao and like what's next for him, because surprisingly enough, Manny Pacquiao has proven to everyone that time, although has sort of slowed him down, he still has that power and even the hand speed that he carried throughout his reign of terror in the 2000s. He tore through a bunch of fighters, and that was a nightmare for me. I'm a Mexican, so he was known as the Mexicutioner. He was the boogeyman for all Mexican fighters because he would take them all out. I mean, arguably, the fight, the quad, how do you say it? I don't even know. Saga with Juan Manuel Marquez. That one you can argue is more competitive, but he lost once to Morales, and then after that he redeemed himself by beating him twice, both via knockout or TKO. Then he goes and draws with Marquez, and then he beats him twice. The third one being probably, in my opinion, the most controversial. You can argue for 2 and whichever one, but they were all very close. But 3, the third one was the one where I seriously thought Marquez had the best chance. I wasn't angry that he lost. Now looking back on that fight was incredibly close and incredibly entertaining. And then the fourth one he got knocked out. So Marquez finally redeemed himself in the fourth one by completely knocking him out. I never once felt that Pacquiao was slowing down. I just didn't think he was going to carry on for so long. And then, not to mention, when he beat Lucas Matthysse for the championship, I didn't think much of it because Matthysse was already out too. He was already on his way out. Win, lose, or draw, I feel like Lucas Matthysse was going to retire. So when I saw him beat him, I was like, well, that's Lucas Matthysse. He was way out of his prime, and it was just something that was whatever, right? And then he goes on to be Adrian Broner, but Adrian Broner has now seemed to have become a meme at this point. He once had a very bright future in boxing, and then fame, and he was trying to become the next Floyd, and getting wrapped all in that. He just didn't change his style. His style is literally in boxing it's supposed to be hit and don't get hit. He literally was don't hit and don't get hit. And unfortunately that makes you lose fights, and that's exactly what happened with Pacquiao. Pacquiao absolutely outboxed him in every single way. I don't think I ever saw him winning one round of that fight. But then after that, we had all that shenanigans with Adrian Broner, him calling, saying that he won the fight, yada yada. Manny Pacquiao goes on to fight Keith Thurman. And Keith Thurman, I think Keith Thurman actually had a kind of stretch of really good fights. He fought Sean Porter. He beat him. Then he beat Danny Garcia when they were both undefeated. I honestly thought Keith Thurman won that fight pretty comfortably. You can argue which way, but I no hate on Danny Garcia. Keith Thurman won that fight. And then he did absolutely nothing. He won the championship, he beat Danny Garcia, and then he went into the void. And he was laid off for almost 2 years. And then he comes back and fights Josecito Lopez and looks awful. He looks absolutely awful. The ring rust is apparent. He was getting clocked by Lopez, and once I saw that, I kind of had this really sinking feeling in my stomach. At the time, I didn't know that whether or not he was going to fight Pacquiao, because I at that point, even though Pacquiao did beat Broner, I didn't think he was going to go on and fight Keith Thurman. I didn't consider Pacquiao like one of those top tier welterweights, and I still don't. I just think that at this point, Manny Pacquiao is just trying to get paid. But then they go on to have a fight of the year candidate fight, and Pacquiao beats him via split decision. Not only that, but he actually knocked down Keith Thurman in the first round. A flash knockdown that just completely stunned Keith Thurman. And he beat Keith Thurman, and I think that was the right decision. Pacquiao looked sharper, looked like he looked like almost like the Pacquiao of old. It was a close fight, but I think the right man won. And so one has to ask, what's next for Manny? He just beat arguably one of the top 5 welterweights in Keith Thurman, and who is he going to fight now? And I think, there's news that he's trying to negotiate a fight with Mikey Garcia, and Mikey Garcia is just a whole other creature of his own. He has this delusion that he's gonna be one of the greatest, and I absolutely love Mikey Garcia. He was tearing through the 130s, the 135 division. He was absolutely a physical specimen. He was all pressure. He put gas. He started off slow, but once he figured you out, it was all pressure from there. He beat Sergey Lepanets. He beat Robert Easter Jr. He beat Adrian Broner too. He beat guys that for me, genuinely, I thought he was gonna do well when he moved up. I just didn't think he was gonna move up to 147 and immediately fight Errol Spence. I did say that Mikey had a chance, but that's because I just love Mikey Garcia. Again, that's the reason why I'm not an analyst. That's the reason why ESPN hasn't hired me, because I'll just be going out on a limb and going based on heart. I always try to go for the Latino, so like it was a hard pill to swallow when Errol Spence completely neutralized Mikey Garcia's um, offense. And I will say Mikey Garcia does have a huge head, so like taking those blows literally did nothing to him. Hopefully he can stand up with the 147s, because he took Errol Spence's best shots and he still stood. Um, but I think that jump to 147 and immediately fighting arguably the number one welterweight in that division. For me, number two, I think Crawford is still much better. But God, man, Manny Pacquiao fighting Mikey Garcia for me, I think it's a smart move for Garcia. Yeah, Manny Pacquiao still is a very formidable opponent, but he is no Terence Crawford and he is no Errol Spence. And I think this is going to be a test for Mikey Garcia to see where he's at in the welterweight division. I don't think he's ranked. Maybe, I don't know, in the welterweight division, because he should have fought somebody like somebody that wasn't that much of a huge threat. I get it. He was trying to prove a point and say that he could stand up to the guys in the 147 division, stand up to the best of the best. But in all honesty, he should have went up to 147 and fought somebody that was basically a tune-up. If you really wanted to fight somebody in the 147 division, you could have easily fought someone like an Adrian Broner. Again, Adrian Broner, even oh God, I forgot his name. Shit. But he could have fought somebody that was an introductory fight into the division. Instead, he went face first into Errol Spence, and let me tell you, man, Errol Spence is no freaking joke. He completely outmatched him, and it was apparent. So Manny Pacquiao fighting Mikey Garcia, I think, would be a good challenge for Mikey Garcia. One that I think could be manageable. Though I will say that Manny Pacquiao still has the tools at his disposal to beat someone like Mikey Garcia. But I think once Manny Pacquiao hits the top guys in the division, I think the resistance and the competition just will completely be too much for Manny. So going on the flip side, the loser, Keith Thurman. I love Keith Thurman. One time Thurman. I loved him. I think that he admitted himself. He said that the ring rust was very, very detrimental to his performance, and I have to agree. There's a thing in just to quickly go on to like UFC or MMA. Sorry, MMA really quickly. See, rookie mistake. I don't belong in the MMA world yet. But going to MMA really quickly. In MMA, especially like the mainstream one is more, the mainstream company of MMA is the UFC. So you tend to follow fighters and everything like that. They fight so often, especially those coming up. Especially the fighters coming up. Who are like in the top 10, who try really hard to reach the top. They don't stop. They fight every like 4 to 5 months. And that is incredibly, in my opinion, it's very, it's very valiant to do that. I know that many people will say, well, boxing, you're just taking blows to the head and to the body, so you need more recovery. That is absolutely true, and I 100% agree. But let's try to find an estimated like equivalent of doing that in MMA, because like when a boxer can just decide to not fight for a year is already bad enough, but almost 2 years in Keith Thurman's layoff was incredibly detrimental to him. That tune-up fight with Josecito Lopez that was supposed to be his comeback fight was absolutely horrendous, and it showed. And I hope that he comes back and fights, a fighter that gives him a challenge, but also kind of allows him to kind of regain his confidence. I don't think he was completely shook because it was a split decision, so he could argue that he won it or whatever, but the loss is still a loss. So What's next for him? I think there are 3 good fighters that he could fight. Or 3 good fights that are good for him. The safest one, and I hate to pick on him. I don't hate to pick on him, because fuck that guy. But the easiest one that I think could be like just a nice little fight, a tune-up fight could launch him into another fight with one of the top guys is fighting Broner. Adrian Broner, I know it doesn't look entirely good on his record, but fighting Broner after losing to Manny Pacquiao seems like a very nice way to try to gain confidence and try to gain a footing again. But you got to do it fast, like you got to get that stuff immediately. If I was Keith Thurman right now, I'd rest up, rest up, but then get back into the fray and try to find your next fight as soon as possible to shake off all that rust. The next one would be Sergey Lepinets. I think Sergey is a tough fighter. He's not very defensively gifted, and he doesn't move a lot often, but he has a power, and I think that Keith Thurman needs to fight a dude who can also test his chin. So Sergey Lepinets could be a good fight, one that could be very easily won by Thurman if he just outboxes him, keeps his distance, moves around, moves around laterally and everything. But Sergey does present a more moderate risk for Thurman. And lastly, Yordenis Ugas, who, arguably beat Sean Porter for his championship, which was a pretty great fight. It's just, man, I think that fight would be the most risk for Thurman, because if he goes to fight Ugas, and Ugas is just a physical specimen. He is so awkward. He could present a lot of problems to Thurman, like just as he presented to Sean. I know Sean isn't the most gifted, boxer out there, but Sean goes out there and gets it. He's a brawler. He likes to bust some chops, and Yordenis Ugas kind of neutralized that, but he came out with the L, and but those 3 fights seem like the most wise in a way. Obviously, I feel like they're ranked, so Broner would be number 1. That would be like a very nice, almost tune-up fight, unless Broner all of a sudden fixes everything and becomes like this incredibly slick, powerful boxer. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. But Broner and Lipinets seem like the most safe. But if Thurman wants to keep the challenge up, I think that Ugas would be a good fight. We'll just have to see what happens with Thurman, what he decides to do. But with Pacquiao, I think Garcia is the next fight he wants to get, and I get it. He's trying to fight the best guys. Why? Because he knows that he can pull in the numbers, viewership, and he wants to get paid, man. He's not only a boxer, he's a senator, man. So we'll just have to see what goes on next. I'd like to keep this train moving and move on to the heavyweight division. Well, okay, so like AJ and Andy Ruiz finally agreed to fight in Abu Dhabi, December 7th. Not Abu Dhabi, what the hell? Saudi Arabia, I'm sorry. Not Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi was this past fight with Poirier and Nurmagomedov. Rest in peace, Dustin Poirier. Damn it, I wanted him to win. But that's beyond the point. So AJ versus Ruiz. Okay, before we even continue on the fight, I think I was super happy when Andy Ruiz won. Absolutely ecstatic. You cannot believe how happy I was. Not only that, okay, I know a lot of people who do know me would be like, well, no shit, dude, he's a Mexican. Well, first of all, he is Mexican. Not born in Mexico, but his nationality is Mexican. Or not nationality, damn it. God damn it, dude. Ethnicity, sorry. But he is Mexican. So that already is you're already pulling at my heartstrings. You're already pulling at my pride. So that was one thing. And then second of all, he was a big fluffy dude. He's a big chubby dude, man. He came in the first fight 276, and he had the love handles going. He looked like a muffin top. He looked like a muffin. So, and I'm a big guy too, so of course, man, rep him for the big boys. That's the reason why, when he won, I was so enthralled. But to be honest, it was just more along the lines that AJ, in a way, was so hesitant to fight Wilder. Him and Hearn completely wanted to avoid a fight with Wilder, because, and the Ruiz fight actually showed why. Anthony Joshua's chin is questionable. And he it looked like he took the Ruiz fight incredibly not serious. Like it looked like he was gassed by like the fourth round, third round or so. His power is still there because he still knocked down Andy Ruiz. But Andy Ruiz kind of reminded me of, again, one of my favorite boxers, Juan Manuel Marquez, and like he got knocked down with a pretty hard punch, I must say. Like he took that, ate it, and got back up. And when he took it, he got back up and he became way, 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 way more aggressive, and even knocked down AJ as well. So the problem that I have right now is that Ruiz, I don't think I should ever try to dictate what any grown man or grown person does with their money. But I really am afraid that Andy Ruiz is gonna let the money and like the fame get to his head, and he's not gonna take the fight seriously. I'm not saying he won't. It's just a concern that I have. As upsets, even though upsets, they're grand and they come in, and they're historical. Especially him being the first Mexican heavyweight boxer or champion. Is he gonna pull a Buster Douglas and fight, AJ and get torn apart? Obviously, Buster Douglas got decimated by Evander Holyfield, but is Andy Ruiz gonna come into this fight not as prepared or cocky or arrogant? I'm worried about that. It's not that I'm admitting that he's gonna lose. It's just a concern that is very valid. It's happened before and it could happen again. As much as I love Andy Ruiz, he is not immune to to human nature. So we'll have to see how that goes. He's also stated that he's gonna come into the fight at 255, which is another concern of mine. Though I may be wrong to think that, but in the first fight, I remember he said he came in at 276 and he wanted to put up all that weight because he wanted to maintain his power. Now, what deceives the eye of Andy is that Andy has incredibly fast hands, and not only that, but he has pretty good cardio for a big boy. And on top of that, he has absolutely huge knockout power. And we all saw that. So I'm worried that he's going to try to slim down to, for whatever reason. It's like, why would you try to fix something that isn't broken? And that's my question to him. You don't have to change much, but, if we're talking about just like how I think, analytically, non-biased, how I think the second fight will go, unfortunately, I think that AJ is probably gonna outbox him. I think it's not gonna be an absolute banger of a fight like the first one was, and that's because AJ knows what to expect now, and that's the issue. I think AJ took that loss pretty well, but I think it did sting to have him lose all those belts that he won. So I definitely think that Anthony Joshua has a case to be made. He's probably just gonna jab his way to a victory, to be honest. He's probably just going to do what he did to Joseph Parker. The only reason why he did that to Joseph Parker, though, was because Joseph Parker is a very, very awkward fighter as well. But, I don't see AJ knocking out Ruiz, and I can only hope that Andy Ruiz can repeat what he did the first time, to just prove that he belongs there as a top heavyweight. Even if he loses, unless he gets absolutely knocked out. But if he loses and it's a close fight, I still think he has an opportunity to regain those belts, and even might have a chance to fight other top heavyweights. But as of now, I really, really don't think that he could. He's gonna beat Anthony Joshua. I think Anthony Joshua probably just got really, really upset with the loss, and is probably gonna come back and beat him comfortably. But I hope that that's not the case. I hope that Andy Ruiz does beat him. And I hope, honestly, I hope he knocks him out again to prove his point. And, I hope he doesn't play around with his food. If he does come back and he's incredibly, he's motivated and he's concentrated and he's going to come back and be the same Ruiz he was the first time, I'm all for having him knock him out again. That's the name of the game. I want him to prove it. I want him to prove it. Even though I'm a huge fan of him and, he's a Mexican brethren of mine. but I want him to hopefully come in absolutely ready to go. I want him to not chase the knockout, but if the opportunity arises, take it. Don't play with it. Try to solidify it. But for the fact of the matter of it happening in Saudi Arabia, I just think that it was because of neutral ground. I'm not really happy that it's in Saudi Arabia, to be completely honest with you. But Ruiz didn't want to fight in London, and Hearn sure as fuck wasn't gonna come back to to the United States after losing. So I guess Saudi Arabia was the neutral ground for this fight, and I hope that one can only hope that it goes well. The next fight is Wilder Ortiz 2. I think the writing's already on the wall. I think Luis Ortiz is already kind of on his way out, and as much as I do love King Kong, he's probably not gonna. It's probably not gonna be any different from the first fight. Luis might give him some trouble and kind of maybe even might tap Wilder on the chin and stagger him, but all it takes is Wilder's right hand, and I love me some knockouts. Wilder has always kind of bugged me, but it's I wish Ortiz could win. He does have a chance. Every boxer has a chance in a fight, but if the first fight was any sort of any sort of symbol of like how it's gonna go down, it's gonna be that right hand that is probably gonna knock out Luis Ortiz again. I'm still gonna watch it. It's still gonna be, to be honest, a pretty competitive fight early on. But I do not see Ortiz beating Wilder at all. So, and to be honest, I think it was a little bit disrespectful that Fury and Wilder already looked past their fights, making their second fight in early next year, because who's to say you aren't gonna lose? I'm not. It's not probable. Statistically, it's not a very high probability that either of them will lose before that showdown in early 2020, but just the massive slap in the face to Ortiz and Otto Wallin. Admittedly, though, the Ortiz fight is much more of a risk for Wilder than Tyson Fury fighting Otto Wallin or Valen, whatever, some German boxer who's undefeated, but he's relatively unknown. And that fight with Wallin, to be honest, is just completely awful. It makes me sad because Fury is my favorite heavyweight, and honestly my number one heavyweight in like the division, but the fact that he's fighting these guys who have never been heard of, that don't really present an obvious and clear danger, there's no way to improve. It's just gonna be it's basically just a WWE match right there. He's gonna come out and be, flamboyant and, completely, he's gonna be like trying to get the crowd rowdy and everything like that. But in reality, it's just gonna be some fight that makes money and that's it. But Wilder Ortiz, I think Wilder's gonna win. Finally, Alexander Usyk has finally found a opponent in Spong. I don't remember his first name. I apologize for that, but again, I would have much rather have him fight Carlos Takam in the heavyweight division. I know the first one fell through because Usyk got hurt, but you couldn't have gotten him again. I think Spong is just too easy for Usyk. Again, every fighter has a chance to win, but probability is just Usyk is probably just gonna take out this kickboxer and roll with it, and I really wish that he would have fight Carlos Takam, who is actually a much more dangerous fighter compared to Spong. Is Carlos Takam like an absolute challenger? No, not really. But it would present something that Usyk would have to get used to. Big guys at the heavyweight division coming up from cruiserweight. And honestly, I would love to see a rematch between him and Gassiev. I know the first go around, Usyk completely decimated him in the World Boxing Super Series, but up in heavyweight, I would love to see that matchup again. And I'm pretty sure we'll see them fight again, to be honest, because Gassiev, Murat Gassiev, he is just absolutely a talented fighter, another Abel Sanchez, he should be primed and ready to go. So we'll see what that goes. And then we have to my boy Canelo. Yes, you can almost, I guess you can call me a Canelo stan, but I guess you can't, because I will criticize him when he does stupid shit and when he deserves it. So apparently Canelo wants to move up to light heavyweight and is close to finalizing a deal with Sergey Kovalev, who just came off a really good fight with Anthony Yarde. He though you can tell Sergey is just he is running on fumes at this point, man. If you guys followed Kovalev very closely, you see that his style completely changes from the time where he lost to Eleider Alvarez, when he got knocked out, to now. Like, arguably it wasn't too much of a time, but when he left John David Jackson to go fight, to go train with Buddy McGirt, which I think was a very wise decision, because Buddy McGirt finally taught Kovalev what so many of his trainers couldn't do, and that's box. Stop going for those haymakers. Take your time, jab, because he has a nasty jab. Kovalev still has a nasty jab. The only problem is that he has Father Time against him. He's 36 years old. He can't hang with the top guys anymore. If he were to fight Gvozdyk or Dimitri Bivol or even Anthony Yarde again, I think that it presents he's not going to be the king for long. My only issue is that people have, Kovalev has already been projected as the underdog, and don't get me wrong, Canelo is a very talented fighter, but Canelo's coming up to the light heavyweight division as a 5'9" boxer. The average height for a light heavyweight contender is 6'1". Now, many people can argue that height really isn't that much of a big deal, but I want to see how he's going to handle the power up at 175 and the height, because not every guy's going to be 5'9", not every guy's going to be 6'1". Some guy might be taller. I think they're not giving Kovalev much of a chance. I think Canelo still wins the fight, but I don't think that Kovalev should be that much of an underdog. We'll just have to see how it goes. I think Canelo likes to go to the body a lot, so that is, and that's honestly the major flaw that Kovalev has. He doesn't take body shots well at all. We saw that in the second Andre Ward fight. We saw that with Anthony Yarde, who was actually going for the body too, and I think Canelo is just gonna tear him apart that way. I think that Canelo is gonna probably win, but that's the reason why he chose Kovalev, because he knew that Kovalev can't handle those body punches. We'll just have to see if Buddy McGirt teaches Kovalev to maintain distance with his nasty jab, because if he does, I think he could actually pull an upset. But from this point on, I don't think that he could beat Canelo. I think Canelo goes up there and beats Kovalev. But then even then, after that, Canelo has a lot of competition. Dimitri Bivol is an absolute machine. Alexander Gvozdyk, who's trained by the great Teddy Atlas, is there. He is a champion too. He beat Adonis Stevenson. Okay, one could say, well, Adonis Stevenson was 41. Okay, yeah, but Adonis Stevenson was undefeated up until then. He ducked a lot of dudes and whatever, but he beat him. So he still has a very, very, there's a bunch of, competition in the light heavyweight division, and I wonder how he can do. It's similar to the Mikey Garcia thing, except way less, because at least Canelo was a middleweight, and and he went up to super middleweight. We can see him bulk up that way. I just hope that he knows that his height might make a difference. And hopefully we'll see how he takes the punishment up in 175, if he takes any, because he's also a very, very slick fighter. We'll just have to see, though. I'm excited for that fight, but I want to see what might happen if when he moves up to 175, because Kovalev still has the power there. I just like to see how well he will do if he decides to stay up at 175, how he deals with Gvozdyk, Bivol, or even Gilbert Ramirez, who moved up too. We'll just have to see. And you never know. Callum Smith might move up to light heavyweight. I doubt it, but that fight with Callum Smith could be a good one too. It just won't be very popular here in the U.S. But we'll just have to see where Canelo wants to go. Um, to be honest, as much as I really dislike the arguments that people have with the super mega fans of either fighter Triple G and Canelo. You've heard it all before. Canelo this and that, he whatever, and then the Triple G stands just completely being utterly freaking annoying. Crying. To be honest, if it weren't for that first fight, there wouldn't be much argument. If you would have given Triple G the first fight and then Canelo the second fight, many people would just be like, we should just have a third fight. Everything's right as rain, everything's fine. It's just the fact that Canelo drew with Triple G the first time. And I agree that it was a robbery. I 100% agree. Watching that fight over 4 times now, I am definitive in when I say that Canelo has absolutely lost that fight. And that's such a shame, because that's the stuff that pulls away the credibility of boxing. When just because you're popular doesn't mean that you're gonna get judged equally. You're gonna get biased. You're gonna be biased. So the running joke is that Canelo already has like a 2-round lead against Kovalev before they've even gone to the ring, and I agree. That's something that needs to be fixed. I don't know how, to be honest, but it's something that is destroying the sport. But something that I would say is I would love to see Canelo give Triple G one more fight. One more fight before Triple G, he's in the twilight of his career. Give him one more fight. He has a new trainer. Just give him one more fight. Let's see how that one will go. Let's run it back. I mean, I love Canelo. If he were to lose, it would be heartbreaking. But you have to give fair shakes, man. You really do. Both fights were incredibly competitive. Both fights were incredible. Why not run it back? Why not run it back? Or even, and then, you have Demetrius Andrade. Or Andrade. I don't know. I don't know how they say it. Andrade or Andrade. I've heard it both times, but the only reason why he's not going to fight Canelo, or Canelo's not going to fight him, is because it's not that much of an attractive fight. You go ask anyone on the street who's Demetrius Andrade, you're going to be like, I don't know. Who the fuck is that guy? And it makes me sad. I mean, he's not the most talented boxer either, but like, he's still a champion too. I'd love to see that fight. I'd love to see Canelo fight Callum Smith, fight someone actually capable in the 168 division. Not just pick up some fucking random dude off the street and just beat him and all of a sudden be a champion. You gotta fight the best of the best, man. You're the best. You're arguably the best in the middleweight division. You're arguably the best in the super middleweight if you can move up again. You should be fighting the best, man. Fight the number 2, number 3 guys. Like, I'm getting real sick and tired of it. You're fighting Kovalev, fine, but after Kovalev, if you decide to move back down, fight the big guys. Fight Billy Joe. Fight Billy Joe Saunders. He presents a pretty good fight. Fight guys that might be might be challenging. You have really nothing to lose. If you lose, okay, well, you're still a draw, man. You're still a draw unless you have like a string of losses, but you're still a draw. I would even arguably say, like, try to convince, Errol Spence to fight you. Move up to 160 and fight him. You gotta find yourself a good competitor, and I hope that Canelo does eventually. I love him. It's just that it's been hectic, man. It's been hectic finding him a fight. He missed the to make a fight date for September, and now we're trying to aim for November or December. It's absolutely awful. So we'll just have to see how what gets done with him, and hopefully he gets his shit together and finds a fight with Kovalev. Because if Kovalev, which is most likely on the horizon, let's see what he does afterwards. Does he stay at 175 or does he go back down to 160? We'll just have to see, and I would love to hear what you all have to say. But lastly, I'd like to just kind of like go over the fights for this weekend. Not much, to be honest, except for 2 pretty good fights. I already talked about Tyson Fury versus Otto Valen. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm probably not going to watch it, to be completely honest with you. I love Tyson Fury, but I'd rather see him fight top competition than some guy who they just picked up off the street in Germany. That's not to be rude to Otto Valen. I'm pretty sure he can kick my ass in any kind of fight. It's just that Tyson Fury should be fighting fighters who are at his level or better, and that honestly is Wilder and Joshua arguably even Ruiz, but it's just that Joshua and Ruiz are fighting. So Wilder, Ortiz. You guys gotta be fighting, man. Even Alexander Povetkin, something like that. You gotta fight some dudes who are up there with you. Obviously, Alexander Povetkin probably won't present much of a threat to him, but it's still there. So we'll see how that one goes. Devin Haney against Zaur Abdulaev. I'm so sorry if I butchered your name. I'm so freaking sorry. Devin Haney. I'm excited to see that guy. If you haven't heard of Devin Haney, please watch it. Devin Haney is a very, very good prospect. We could very much see him be a threat to his division. And it should be a very interesting fight. I don't really think it's going to be much of a competitive fight. I think Devin Haney is going to win handily. But it's you never know. Again, you never know. So, I mean, I'm so sorry. Abdulaev, he's number 3 in the WBC. He's ranked number 3. So for all we know, it might be a pretty good fight in the lightweight division. So the lightweight division is actually coming out to be very, very competitive. So we'll see how that one goes, and we're gonna have Jaime Munguia. Jaime Munguia is fighting Joshua Aloti. I honestly like Jaime Munguia has, as much as, again, he's another boxer who I absolutely loved the first time I saw him. The first time I saw him was when he completely decimated Saddam Ali. But if you go back and watch that fight, a lot of people can say, "Wow, Jesus Christ, Jaime Munguia is just an insane puncher." No, it's just that Saddam Ali was a very, very small light middleweight. Super welterweight. He's just incredibly small. So Jaime Munguia just completely decimated him, and won the WBO light middleweight. Oh, god damn it! I said super welterweight, and it is light middleweight. Damn it! But he won the WBO light middleweight title, and that was back in 2018. And then he went on to beat Liam Smith, and Liam Smith is just not good, to be honest. No, the best Smith out there is Callum, and even that's not saying much. But Liam Smith, he goes on to beat Brandon Cook easily to retain his belt. He has a much harder fight with Takeshi Inoue. Not harder as in he presented a threat, but it just was completely, it was whatever. But and then Dennis Hogan, he absolutely gave Munguia a run for his money, and even arguably he beat Munguia for his championship, but he got robbed. A lot of people thought he got robbed, and that is kind of a shame. And it was a split decision, but we kind of want to see, if Dennis Hogan, Dennis Hogan, he looked like he gave him a good run for his money. I would have been happy to run it back. Why wouldn't you run it back? Either Munguia is scared, or you beat the guy and you just have to keep on moving on. But I just kind of was really, really sad that they didn't want to run it back. So I know that's asking maybe too much, because boxing is incredibly difficult and complicated, and even sometimes corrupt. So it's very, very bad. So now he's gonna be fighting Patrick Aloti. I said Joshua Aloti. I'm sorry, I still had Anthony Joshua in my head when I said that, but I meant to say Patrick, who is who's a boxer from Ghana, and he's been active since 2006, but he is currently ranked number 1 in Ghana, but 139 in the box rec in the world. So he's 139 out of 1,896. If there's one thing I know, is that right now Jaime has seemed to have a drop off. If anyone goes to watch his fights, after the Brandon Cook fight, when he starts fighting guys who are more along his speed, his height, and also kind of presents a more a harder hitting boxer, he has no defense. He eats the punches. And apparently, after his fight against Elodi, he's going to move up to middleweight. And that is going to be fun. Let's have him actually fight against dudes who can stack up with him. You know, you have Derevianchenko, who's going to fight Triple G. But Derevianchenko, you know, you have a ton of opportunity and a ton of competition up a middleweight. So I'm extremely happy if he does move on. I don't really know much on Patrick Elodi. It looks like he's not much of anything, and that's not a dig on him. Again, all the guys in his record just don't look like much. So I'm gonna say that Munguia probably knocks this guy out, probably KO or TKO in 6th round or so, and that is if Patrick Elodi doesn't present any kind of like threat to him, because he has 43 fights, 3 defeats, 40 wins, 30 by knockout, but he's also been knocked out twice. We'll just have to see, because if this is a fight in which kind of catapults him into the middleweight division, it's not going to be very entertaining if it's just a one-sided affair. I want to see him improve. That's why I want him. Most of the time when I complain about boxers, you know, not fighting, it's not because I want to see them lose or I want to see them like get exposed. It's because the way you get better is by fighting better competition. And unfortunately in boxing is like if you lose, all of a sudden your world is collapsed. And I want that to be untrue. I want Jaime Munguia to go and fight the guys that do present a very, very difficult fight for him. And those are fights that are middleweight, not in the light middleweight division, but in the middleweight. You have Charlo, the Charlo brothers, and you have, even Jarrett Hurd who can move up too. So like you have a grand pool of opportunity and a way to improve. Take it, man. You can't be the best without risking. So I can only hope that Munguia, all these boxers that I'm talking about that I love, they piss me off because I want to see them improve. Challenge yourself. It's easier said than done. I know. I'm just some fucking dude in the middle of in my room recording a podcast, telling you what to do. But people want to see that. They admire people who fight tough opponents because, win, lose or draw, you stood up against this guy, and you can improve from every fight, win, lose or draw. And that's what I hope. That's what I hope happens with Munguia, with Canelo, with Tyson Fury. Right now, if I have to give major props, and I'm gonna give it, I'll give it when it's due. Wilder, man, Wilder has been the only heavyweight, top 3 heavyweight that has been initiating fights with better opponents, and I applaud him for that, man. I don't like his style much, and I think that just relying on one right hand is gonna eventually is eventually gonna be figured out. But I thought Tyson Fury beat him. A lot of people can say, well, he got knocked down twice, so to even the fight, whatever. I don't think so. But he's the only one taking the fights. I mean, come on. His tune-up fight is against Luis King Kong Ortiz. Okay, sure, he was born in 1847. I'm kidding. But, Luis Ortiz, he's older, but he still presents a very viable and very, very dangerous guy. And he's the only one taking the biggest risk. And Anthony Joshua, obviously, but that's because he's coming off a loss, so he's coming back as a challenger, so that's different. But Wilder is the only one maintaining this level of competition that none of the heavyweights are doing, and I hope that they wake the fuck up and start doing it. Same thing with Munguia. Stop fighting guys that are smaller than you, man. Fight guys who present a risk. So that's all I have to say. I kind of went on a big old rant, but first of all, I just want to say thank you for whoever listened to this first episode. I hope that you guys tune in to hear me out every single episode. I'll try to be more detailed in every single thing that I talk about. Sometimes I do go off on a tangent, but I hope that you do stick around and give me pointers and give me advice that might help out
the podcast, because I only want to do this because I seriously enjoy the sport of boxing, and it hurts me to see it suffer when it's losing viewership, and the boxers are refusing to do anything, and sanctioning bodies don't do anything. I just want people to know that boxing is still a powerhouse, and I hope that in this episode I kind of sparked your curiosity, but over time I hope I convince you to get back into boxing and to give it a chance, because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent in here, man, and I couldn't be more proud of this sport. So, thank you very, very much to everyone who listened. Hopefully this could be out soon, but my potato Wi-Fi might not even allow me that. But if whenever this comes out, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you share it to everyone. I hope you share it to your friends. I just hope you really, really enjoyed it, because this means the world to me. So this is, once again, welcome to the Down for the Count podcast. I am your host, Renato Pañao Jr., and I hope you have a very beautiful day. Bye-bye.